Right. So you've got all these reviews and articles about Al Pacino's new memoir, Sonny Boy.
Uh-huh.
But specifically, we're talking about the audiobook version here.
Okay. Yeah.
And you want to figure out, like, is this thing worth my time?
Yeah.
Should I actually listen to this? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to break it all down.
Yeah, unpack it all.
All the
Yeah.
highlights, lowlights, and everything in between so you can decide for yourself.
Yeah, and what I think is so interesting about this memoir is that, it's not just words on a page, it's actually Pacino himself telling you the story.
Oh, yeah.
He narrates the entire audiobook.
I know.
And I think that adds such a whole other
There's a way-
layer of, like, intimacy and authenticity.
This is right there, like he's whispering in your ear.
Totally.
Speaking of whispering,
Okay.
I found this little gem in the Observer piece.
Right?
I got to share this with you.
Yeah.
When they were filming The Godfather in Sicily,
Mm-hmm.
Pacino couldn't speak Italian.
Oh, wow.
He couldn't dance the waltz.
Huh.
And get this, he couldn't even drive a car.
Wow.
Can you imagine showing up on the set of The Godfather and you don't have those skills?
I mean, that's unbelievable, especially considering, the status of that film. It was
Oh,
just so iconic. But I think that anecdote really speaks to the larger arc of the book. Here's this guy who comes from, like, a really tough background, and he just kind of came out of nowhere and became this legend.
Yeah.
And I think Sonny Boy is his attempt to kind of trace those steps, like understand how did this happen.
It's true. And, those early steps are so fascinating,
Yeah.
especially reading through, like, all the excerpts that we have and all these reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And you really get a picture of what his childhood was like in the South Bronx.
Yes.
And it was not glamorous.
No, not at all.
I mean, he was even nicknamed Sonny Boy after, like, this Al Jolson song that his mom loved.
Oh, wow. Yeah. His description of those early years is so vivid.
Yeah.
It's much more so than when he gets to, like, the later career stuff.
Right.
It's so interesting. Like, you can really feel the influence of his mother, even though she had her own struggles.
Oh, yeah.
And just the sense of, like, community, even amidst all the poverty that he was surrounded by.
I was going to say, because he talks about, like, his childhood friends, right?
Yes.
And so many of them ended up dying from drug overdoses.
Sadly.
So it's like, how did he avoid that?
That's the question, right? It's kind of like the million-dollar question.
Yeah. Was it acting? Was it just sheer luck? Like, what was it?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think even Pacino himself is kind of wrestling with that throughout the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he talks about acting as being his escape,
Right.
and finding this solace in, like, performing Shakespeare in alleyways when he was young.
Wow.
It seems like it was so much more than just a career path. It was
Right.
like this lifeline.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of lifelines,
Okay.
let's talk about his narration
Yes.
for this audiobook.
Okay.
Yeah, Rolling Stone is raving about it.
Yeah.
They're saying it's like having a personal conversation with him. What do you make of that?
It's so true. There's just something about hearing him recount these stories,
Yeah.
these memories in his own voice, that just makes it incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the words themselves, it's like the inflection,
Yeah.
the emotion behind them. It adds this whole other dimension to the memoir.
Yeah, it really does. It makes you wonder if you're, like, a fan of his work.
Yeah.
Could this audiobook almost be considered like a performance in and of
Oh,
itself?
totally. Especially when you think about how much he cares about acting. It's like a
He's-
craft to him.
Absolutely. And there are parts in the book where he talks about his process,
Oh, really?
and his need to, like, really inhabit a character. The Kirkus Review actually pulled this quote,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting. He says that acting is real,
Whoa.
even though you're not really doing it.
Yeah, that's the paradox, right?
It is. It's so true.
It's like he's constantly trying to blur the lines
Yeah.
between reality and performance. It's true. And it's something that he's clearly been thinking about since those early days in theater.
Yeah.
He talks about finding that flow state, on stage, that feeling of just complete immersion in the moment.
Totally.
And it seems like he kind of brings that same intensity and dedication to his narration of the audiobook.
It's like he's inviting you into his world,
Totally.
his personal space.
Yes.
Sharing, like, his deepest thoughts and feelings.
Absolutely.
But even with all that vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
there's still a sense that he's holding back a little bit,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to, like, the downsides of fame.
Mm.
The Observer piece talks about how his manager would brag about putting him on posters with guns
Well,
just to guarantee that it would be a box office success.
wow.
So do you think that he ever felt trapped by those, like, tough guy roles?
I mean, that's a really good question. There's definitely a sense,
Yeah.
as the New York Times points out, that He was typecast to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I think even within those constraints, you know,
Uh-huh.
he brought a complexity and a vulnerability to his characters that just kind of transcended the genre.
And it's interesting because, like, his only Oscar win
Yes.
was for Scent of a Woman,
Right.
which was like a role that showed his range.
Yeah.
Do you think that says something about how Hollywood sometimes pigeonholes people?
Yeah. It raises questions about, the industry's perception of talent versus image.
Totally.
And it makes his later career choices even more fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about Looking for Richard,
Oh, yeah.
which is his documentary about Richard III.
Right.
And he says that those were like some of the happiest years of his career.
So even after, like, achieving all this Hollywood stardom,
Yeah.
it's like he's still drawn back to the theater, to the purity of the craft.
Absolutely.
Like he's constantly looking for that artistic fulfillment,
Yeah.
regardless of like the money or the awards.
It's so true. Speaking of, like those setbacks, I was surprised to learn that he actually went broke at one point.
What?
Yeah, both The Observer and the New York Times mentioned it,
Really?
which is crazy to think about given like his level of success.
I know.
But I think it also reinforces this idea that he wasn't really driven by material wealth.
Right. He was just driven by the work.
Exactly. He even says that he would have been content just reading books and doing theater.
Wow.
But what's funny is that Diane Keaton,
Uh-huh.
who was one of his partners,
Yeah.
she wisely points out to him that there's no going back
Oh.
once you reach that level of fame and fortune.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she has this great line. She
Yeah.
says, "You've been rich too long."
Wow.
Which is kind of funny, but also really speaks to the reality of his situation.
Yeah, you can't escape it.
No, he can.
It's like this push and pull
Totally.
between this love for acting
Yeah.
and the overwhelming nature of fame in Hollywood.
It's true.
And he kind of hints at the downsides, like
Yeah.
the isolation,
Yeah.
the pressure. But then he kind of pulls back,
Right.
almost like he's afraid to go too deep.
And I think that's what makes this memoir so fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
There are moments where you feel like you're getting this glimpse behind the curtain.
Yeah.
But then he quickly closes it again,
The surf.
leaving you wanting more.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the power of his storytelling.
Yeah?
He knows how to pique your curiosity,
Yeah.
keep you engaged, even when he's holding back.
It's true.
Yeah, it's like you realize there's just so much more to these people,
Yeah, these iconic figures that we see on screen.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what's so cool about a memoir like this.
Right.
It peels back the layers,
Mm.
and you get to see the person.
Yeah, the real person.
Yeah, behind the persona.
Totally.
But, I keep thinking about that part in the New York Times review
Oh, yeah.
where they said he starts talking about the cost of fame,
Right.
but then it just pulls back,
Yeah.
and it feels like a missed opportunity.
I know, I agree. He mentions like the isolation. Yeah.
And feeling set apart from the world,
Mm-hmm.
but he never really explores it.
It's like he's tiptoeing around something,
Yeah.
but we don't get to the heart of it,
Right.
which is a shame.
It is.
Because I think that could have been like the most valuable part
Totally.
of this whole thing.
Imagine if he had really opened up about, like, the challenges of fame.
Yeah.
The constant pressure, the scrutiny, the lack of privacy.
It would have been so insightful.
I know.
And not just for actors.
Right.
But like for anyone
Exactly.
who's wondered about the price of success.
Yeah, like, what does
Yeah.
it really cost?
Right. It could have been like a cautionary tale almost.
Totally.
Like look at the dark side
Mm-hmm.
instead of just, all the accomplishments.
An highlight reel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think he held back though?
I don't know. Maybe he's not ready to confront those things,
Yeah.
Or maybe he's trying to protect himself, his family, his legacy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's his story to tell.
Right.
So he gets to decide. Absolutely.
But it does leave you wondering, what if?
It really does. What if he had just been totally honest
Yeah.
about how fame affected him?
Would it have been a more powerful memoir?
I think so.
Yeah.
More relatable.
Yeah, more human.
Definitely.
And I think all of that speaks to the power of Al Pacino as an artist.
Oh, yeah.
Even when he's holding back,
Mm-hmm.
he still manages to, like, captivate us
Totally.
and make us want more.
Yeah, it's a testament to his talent, his
Yeah.
charisma,
Yeah.
his ability to just connect with people on such a deep level.
Sonny Boy might not be the tell-all book that some people wanted,
True.
but it's still so fascinating to
Yes.
get this glimpse into his life
Yeah.
and his mind.
And the fact that we get to experience it in his own voice,
I know, it's so...
all the nuances, all the inflections.
It's like he's right here with us,
I know.
sharing his memories,
Yeah.
his reflections.
It's a real treat.
for any fan.
Absolutely.
And I think there's something in it for everyone,
Uh,
even if you're not a diehard Pacino fan.
Yeah, there are universal themes about family, ambition, creative process,
Mm-hmm.
searching for meaning.
So to wrap things up for our listener,
Yeah,
would you say Sonny Boy, the audiobook, is worth checking out?
without a doubt. It's a
Yeah.
journey worth taking. It's raw, it's honest,
Hmm?
and it's Al Pacino.
All right, and on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the man, the myth, the legend.
The legend.
That is Al Pacino. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Sonny Boy.
Yes, thank you.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those ears open for the stories that matter.